The sky over Eris 9 was calm, almost too calm for a world that held so many secrets. Pale blue clouds drifted slowly across the horizon, carrying a soft glow that made the planet feel gentle and welcoming. But anyone who truly understood Eris 9 knew that this calmness was only a mask. Beneath its quiet beauty lay something ancient, something powerful that had been hidden for thousands of years. Captain Jackson Hart, a human explorer known for his bold curiosity, stepped down from his small landing craft. His boots sank slightly into the soft silver soil. Every step he took released a faint shimmer from the ground, making it look like he walked across a field of stars. Jackson paused and looked around with wide, eager eyes. He had traveled across half the galaxy to reach this world. Many had told him not to come. Others said the planet was restricted by the Sraxix Empire, a strong alien civilization that protected its secrets fiercely. But none of that mattered to him. Humans had always explored the unknown, and Jackson was no exception. He checked the device strapped to his wrist. It blinked a steady green light, confirming that the air was breathable and safe. He smiled. Perfect, he whispered to himself. Let's see what you're hiding. Behind him, his small ship rested quietly. It was old and scratched from previous adventures, but it had carried him farther than most humans dared to travel. Jackson gave it a grateful pat before he continued forward. The first thing that caught his eye was the massive structure in the distance. It rose out of the ground like a dark tower built from stone that glowed faintly with strange symbols. The tower was unlike any architecture he had seen before, smooth, curved, and almost alive, as if it had grown instead of being built. His excitement grew. If he could study the tower and understand its origin, it could bring new knowledge back to humanity, something that would inspire future generations as he walked toward it. The breeze grew cooler. The air hummed softly, not like a wind, but more like a quiet whispering voice. Jackson slowed down. He was trained to notice details, and this sound was not natural. It almost felt as if the planet itself was speaking. Still. He kept going. His boots brushed against old stones half buried in the soil. Some were carved with patterns he couldn't recognize. Others looked cracked and covered by moss that glowed faintly in the dim light. Then, from the corner of his eye, he saw movement. Jackson stopped instantly. A tall, elegant figure stepped from behind one of the ancient pillars. Her skin shimmered like silver and violet, and long strands of light floated around her head, like hair made of energy. Her eyes were bright gold, glowing softly in the shade of the tower. She wore flowing robes with symbols similar to the ones carved into the stones around them. Axix. Jackson lifted both hands slightly to show he meant no harm. He had never met a Sraxix up close before. Humans usually stayed far from their worlds, because the Sraxix were known for guarding their history and technology with great care. The woman looked at him with calm but serious eyes. For a moment, neither spoke. The wind fell silent, and even the soft humming of the air stopped, as if the entire planet waited for her words. Finally, she spoke. Her voice soft, yet filled with authority. You should not be here. Human. Jackson swallowed, keeping his posture peaceful. Her tone was not angry, but firm like a teacher correcting a student. My name is Captain Jackson Hart, he said politely. I'm only here to study the ruins. I didn't mean to disturb anyone. The woman studied him quietly. Her golden eyes seemed to read his thoughts, as if she could see every choice he had ever made. I am Serena, an oracle of the Sraxix, she said. This world is forbidden to outsiders. Your presence here is dangerous. Jackson frowned slightly. Dangerous for me? Serena shook her head slowly. Dangerous for everything. He blinked. That was not the answer he expected. I don't understand, he said honestly. Serena stepped closer, but she moved with such grace that her feet barely touched the ground. She seemed more like a being made of light than a physical creature. When she stopped a few steps away, Jackson felt a strange pressure in the air, like an invisible wave pushing against him. This world holds an ancient prophecy, she explained. It warns of a time when an outsider one, not born of our stars, will step on this soil and awaken forces that have slept for ages. forces that could change the future of many worlds. Jackson listened carefully. He had heard many legends during his travels, but none had ever sounded as serious as this one. "I am not here to awaken anything," he said calmly. "I'm only here to learn." Serena shook her head again. "The prophecy does not speak of intentions. It speaks of actions, and your action of setting foot on this planet has already begun its course." Jackson felt a chill crawl up his spine. He turned slowly, looking at the quiet landscape, the glowing soil, the ancient stones, the tall tower that pulsed with soft light. Everything seemed peaceful, yet Serena's words made him feel as if something unseen had shifted the moment he arrived. "You're saying," he said slowly, "that just by landing here, I triggered something?" "Yes," Serena replied. "And now the future is no longer quiet." Jackson exhaled softly, rubbing the back of his neck. He didn't believe in prophecies, but the seriousness in Serena's eyes made him hesitate. She didn't look like someone who spoke lightly. "Is there a way to stop it?" he asked. Serena looked down at the glowing soil, then back at him. Her expression was filled with a mixture of worry and something else, something like curiosity. "The prophecy says the outsider will either restore balance or break it," she said gently. "But it does not say how, or which path will be taken." Jackson felt tension tighten his chest. He didn't want to break anything, especially not the future of an entire species. "Then let me leave," he said. "If I go now, maybe everything will return to normal." Serena's face softened, almost as if she wished that were true, but she slowly shook her head. "It is too late. The moment you touched the soil, the ancient systems beneath this world awakened. They sensed your presence. They recognized you, recognized me." Jackson repeated, "I'm just a human. I'm nobody special." Serena studied him again, her eyes glowing brighter. The ancient ones believed that a human would be the one to understand their knowledge. "Your species is new, curious, unshaped by the laws that guide older civilizations. That is why you were chosen in the prophecy. You are unpredictable." Jackson didn't know if that was a compliment or a warning. Maybe it was both. He took a slow breath. "What happens now?" Serena turned her gaze toward the tall tower. The glowing symbols pulsed faster, brighter, as if reacting to their conversation. "Now," she said quietly, "the world begins to remember." A low hum rose from the ground, vibrating under Jackson's feet. The glowing moss brightened. The air felt charged with energy. Something beneath the surface, something ancient and powerful, was waking up. Serena lifted her hand, signaling for him to stay back. "I warned you to leave," she said gently. "But the prophecy has chosen you. And once a prophecy begins, it cannot be undone." Jackson felt his heartbeat rise. He wasn't sure if he should run, hide, or stay perfectly still. But one thing was clear. The quiet world he had stepped onto only minutes ago was no longer quiet. "But what does it want?" he asked. Serena's expression turned somber. "It wants you, Captain Jackson Hart," she said. "It wants the one who dares to question, dares to explore, dares to unlock what has been sealed." Jackson stared at her, stunned. "Why me?" "Because," Serena replied, "humans do not fear the unknown, and that makes your kind powerful." Before he could respond, the tower behind them sent out a soft ripple of light. The symbols carved into its surface moved, shifting into new patterns, as if rewriting themselves. Serena turned toward the tower with wide eyes. "It begins," she whispered. Jackson watched as the light traveled along the ground, forming glowing lines that spread across the soil like roots of energy. They reached his feet and circled around him, almost as if they were examining him. He stepped back nervously, but the lines followed. "Do not run," Serena said calmly. "It will only follow faster." "Great," Jackson muttered under his breath. "That's comforting." Serena gave him a small, almost sympathetic smile. Humor in danger. That is a human trait. The lines of light finally stopped circling and formed a symbol under Jackson's feet, a symbol he couldn't understand. But Serena recognized immediately. Her eyes widened with shock. "It has chosen you fully," she said. The prophecy is alive. Jackson stared at the glowing symbol beneath him. What does that mean? He asked quietly. Serena stepped closer and placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. It means, she said softly, your journey has only just begun. Jackson stood still, his feet locked in place by the strange glowing symbols now wrapped around him. He couldn't understand what was happening, but every nerve in his body felt the growing intensity of the moment. The light beneath him pulsed, almost as if it had a heartbeat of its own. Serena stepped back slightly, her expression now one of serious focus. Her golden eyes didn't leave the glowing marks on the ground. Jackson glanced down at the strange symbols, their intricate designs shifting and moving, like ancient patterns coming to life. The quiet humming sound from earlier started again, louder this time, vibrating in the air around them. It was as though the entire planet had awoken from a long slumber. All because of him, because he had stepped on this world. You're not imagining this? Serena said, her voice quiet but firm. The prophecy has truly begun. Jackson's mind raced. He didn't believe in prophecies. He didn't believe in fate. He believed in exploration, in science, and in facts. But here, on this strange alien world, facts seemed to be slipping away like sand through his fingers. This doesn't make sense, Jackson muttered to himself. Why me? I'm just here to study the ruins. Serena's gaze turned to him, her eyes piercing and filled with wisdom far beyond any human experience. The prophecy does not care for your intentions, Captain Hart. It cares only for the actions that you've set in motion. Once you triggered the pattern, once you set foot on this soil, the future shifted. But I didn't know about the prophecy, Jackson said, frustration creeping into his voice. I didn't know it even existed. And that is why it was you, Serena answered softly, as though she had been expecting his reaction. The prophecy was always meant for an outsider, someone who would not know the danger, someone who would be unprepared. You came without fear, without hesitation. That is why you have been chosen. Jackson took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. There was no use arguing with her. Serena was not like any of the aliens he had encountered in his travels. She was calm, poised, and had an air of authority about her that made him question everything he thought. He knew about the universe. He shifted his weight, trying to step out of the glowing symbol beneath him, but his feet wouldn't move. It was as if the ground itself was holding him in place. Why can't I move? Jackson asked, his voice rising slightly in panic. Serena's eyes softened, but her voice remained calm. The prophecy has bound you to this place now. Until it plays out, until its course has been completed, you cannot leave. Jackson looked up at the tall, ancient tower that stood in the distance. It still hummed with energy, its stone walls pulsing in rhythm with the strange force beneath his feet. If I can't leave, then what am I supposed to do? He asked, trying to keep the panic out of his voice. The answer is simple, Serena replied, her voice steady. You must follow the path the prophecy has set for you. You must unlock the knowledge buried in this world. And you must do so before the Sraxics learn of your presence. Jackson frowned. The Sraxics? Yes, Serena said, her expression hardening. The Sraxics Empire has kept a tight grip on this galaxy for millennia. They control the stars, the trade routes, the flow of knowledge itself. And they will not tolerate any disturbance. The prophecy you have triggered speaks of an outsider who will come to destroy the balance they have created. And that outsider is you. Jackson felt a chill run down his spine at the seriousness in her words. Destroy the balance? He wasn't even sure how to read the alien ruins, let alone overthrow an empire. I didn't come here to fight anyone, Jackson said, shaking his head. I just wanted to learn. I just wanted to understand what happened to the people who lived here. Serena stepped closer, her golden eyes locked onto his. That is the key. The knowledge here, the knowledge you will uncover, is the only thing that can threaten the SRAXX. And that is why they will stop at nothing to ensure that you do not succeed. Jackson swallowed, trying to process everything she had said. The Sraxics had been rulers for as long as anyone could remember. Their technology was far beyond anything humanity had, their power vast and nearly unchallengeable. He had never been part of any war, any rebellion. All he wanted was to explore, to learn. And yet here he was, standing on the edge of something far bigger than he ever expected. So what exactly is buried here? Jackson asked. What's so important that it could threaten an entire empire? Serena took a deep breath. The Sraxics have always feared this world. Long ago, an ancient civilization much older than the Sraxics built something here. Device. A device that holds the power to reshape the entire galaxy. Jackson blinked in confusion. A device? What kind of device? A device that can manipulate space, time, and the flow of knowledge itself. The Sraxics have searched for it for centuries. They believe it holds the key to ultimate control, to absolute power. But it was hidden away, sealed, and the knowledge to find it was lost. Until now. Jackson felt the weight of her words pressing down on him. If the Sraxics wanted this device so badly, that meant it was far more than just an ancient relic. It was something that could change everything. And now, for reasons he didn't understand, he was the one who had triggered its awakening. This is insane, he muttered. I'm just one person. I'm not prepared for this. Serena placed a hand gently on his arm, her touch surprisingly warm. No one is ever prepared, Captain Hart. But you are the one who was chosen. And now you must choose how to use what you have awakened. Jackson glanced down at the glowing symbols beneath him again. They were still pulsing with energy, like the heart of some ancient beast that had just stirred from its slumber. He could feel it deep in his bones. This was real. He wasn't dreaming. If I understand you correctly, he said slowly, you're telling me that if I don't figure this out, the Sraxics will come for me? ... And the whole galaxy could fall under their control. Serena nodded gravely. That is exactly what I am telling you. Jackson exhaled sharply, rubbing his face in frustration. This was not what he signed up for. He had come here for knowledge, for a story to tell back home. He had never expected to become part of an ancient prophecy, and certainly never imagined that his actions would set off a chain of events that could change the entire galaxy. Okay, Jackson said, straightening up. Let's say I believe you. What do I do now? Serena looked over at the glowing tower, her eyes reflecting the light from its shimmering walls. We need to go deeper into the ruins. The knowledge is buried inside the heart of this world. It is the only way you can fully understand what has been set into motion. Jackson nodded. Lead the way. Together, they started walking toward the tower. As they moved forward, the ground beneath their feet seemed to hum louder, vibrating with each step. The air grew thicker with energy. Jackson could almost feel the pulse of the planet's heartbeat. Serena walked with purpose, her eyes fixed ahead. Jackson followed closely, still unsure of what he was about to uncover. The tower loomed closer now, its stone walls cracked and weathered by time. It was massive, far larger than he had imagined from a distance. Strange symbols ran across its surface, glowing faintly in the dim light. Like a map to something Jackson couldn't yet understand. What exactly is inside the tower? Jackson asked. A chamber, Serena said, her voice low and serious. A chamber where the Ancient Ones left their knowledge, their secrets. It is said that whoever unlocks the chamber will be able to access the device. But only the one who triggers the prophecy can enter. Jackson's heart beat faster. And you think that's me? She didn't answer right away, her eyes fixed on the tower. I don't think, she said quietly. I know. They reached the entrance to the tower, where the glowing symbols on the stone doors shifted and moved, as though they were recognizing their arrival. With a loud rumble, the doors slowly opened, revealing the dark. Quiet interior of the tower, Jackson stepped inside, ready for whatever came next. The air inside the tower was cool and thick, with an ancient kind of energy. Jackson could feel it all around him as he stepped forward, following Serena into the dark interior. The towering walls were covered in intricate designs that seemed to pulse faintly with light, as though the very stones of the structure were alive. He looked up, noticing that the ceiling seemed impossibly high, disappearing into shadow. This place. It feels like it's been waiting for something, Jackson whispered, his voice echoing in the quiet chamber. Serena's golden eyes scanned the surroundings, her face unreadable. It has, she said quietly. It has been waiting for you. The words settled heavily in the air, and Jackson couldn't help but feel the weight of them. He didn't know how, but somehow everything seemed connected: his arrival, the prophecy, the strange energy in the air. It all pointed toward one undeniable truth. This was his journey now. Whether he wanted it or not, they continued down the dark hallway. The soft light from the symbols on the walls the only source of illumination. The deeper they went, the colder the air became, and the more alive the place seemed to feel. Every footstep echoed as if the tower was listening, responding. At the end of the hall, they arrived at a large stone door. The design on it was different from the rest of the tower, more intricate, almost like a maze, with a glowing symbol in the center. It was the same symbol that had appeared beneath Jackson's feet when he first set foot on the planet. The one he couldn't understand. Serena stepped forward and placed a hand on the door. The glow from the symbol brightened as she touched it, and a low hum filled the air. The door slowly began to open, revealing a large chamber beyond. Jackson stepped inside, his heart racing. The room was vast, with a massive stone pedestal in the center. On top of the pedestal was an object, something unlike anything Jackson had ever seen. It was an orb, smooth and dark, with lines of glowing energy running through it. It pulsed with a faint blue light, and Jackson could feel its power even from across the room. "This is it, isn't it?" Jackson said, his voice barely a whisper. "This is the device." Serena nodded, her eyes fixed on the orb. "Yes, the heart of Eris 9. It is the key to everything." Jackson moved closer, his eyes never leaving the orb. As he approached, he could feel the energy in the room growing stronger, pressing against him like a wave. It was as if the orb was calling to him, urging him to come closer. "Don't touch it yet," Serena warned, her voice serious. "The prophecy is not just about unlocking the device. It's about understanding it. The moment you activate it, you will be connected to everything, every piece of knowledge, every secret this world holds. It will change you, Captain Hart, and it may be irreversible." Jackson paused, looking back at her. "Irreversible? How?" Serena took a deep breath. "The device is connected to the very fabric of the galaxy. It controls the flow of knowledge, space, and time itself. Once you unlock it, the Sraxics will come for you. They have been searching for this for centuries. They will stop at nothing to control it." Jackson's heart raced. He had known that the Sraxics would be dangerous, but hearing it from Serena made it all feel so real. They would be coming for him, coming for the knowledge that could change everything. And he had no choice but to keep going. "What do we do?" Jackson asked, his voice filled with determination. "How do I stop them?" Serena's eyes darkened. "You don't. At least, not yet. For now, we need to unlock the knowledge hidden within this device. Only then can we understand how to use it tanned, how to fight the Sraxics." Jackson looked back at the orb. It was both beautiful and terrifying, a symbol of untold power. He knew deep down that this was the moment that would define everything. The moment that would decide the fate of not just him, but the entire galaxy. But as his hand moved toward the orb, a sudden sound interrupted the silence, a loud crack, followed by the sound of something heavy hitting the ground. Jackson spun around, his heart leaping into his throat. The doors to the chamber slammed shut with a deafening boom. And from the shadows, a group of figures stepped into the light. The Sraxics. Jackson froze. There were 5 of them, tall and imposing, their skin shimmering with an unnatural silver glow. Their eyes were dark, void-like, but they glowed with an eerie intelligence. They wore dark, flowing robes, each adorned with strange symbols that Jackson didn't recognize. The leader of the group stepped forward, his cold gaze fixed on Jackson. "You've made a grave mistake." "Human," he said, his voice deep and smooth. "This world is under the protection of the Sraxics Empire. You have no right to awaken the heart of Eris 9. Jackson's breath caught in his chest. He had heard of the Sraxics, of course. They were the rulers of the galaxy, a race of ancient, almost godlike beings who controlled the flow of knowledge and power. But he had never imagined he'd be standing face to face with them. "I didn't mean any harm," Jackson said quickly, trying to keep his voice steady. You didn't mean any harm?" the leader interrupted, his voice sharp and unforgiving. "The prophecy does not care for your intentions. It only cares for the actions you have set in motion. And now, you will pay the price." Jackson's eyes darted to Serena, who stood by his side. Her eyes narrowed with a quiet fury. She didn't speak, but Jackson could sense her tension. She was ready for this confrontation, ready to protect him. The Straxix leader raised his hand, and the room suddenly grew colder. Jackson felt a chill race down his spine as the Straxix closed in. Their movements swift and calculated. "Do not think you can escape this fate," the leader continued, his voice low. "You have already triggered the device. You are now a threat to the entire Empire." Serena stepped forward, her gaze unblinking. "You don't understand," she said, her voice calm but firm. "The prophecy was never meant to be controlled by the Straxix. It was meant to be the end of your reign." The leader laughed, a cold, unsettling sound. "End our reign? You speak of things you cannot possibly comprehend." Jackson's heart pounded in his chest. He could feel the power in the room, the tension between Serena and the Straxix. He knew what he had to do. He had no other choice. Without thinking, Jackson reached forward and placed his hand on the orb. The room went silent. The orb pulsed with light, growing brighter with each passing second. The symbols on the walls seemed to come alive, shifting and glowing as the energy in the room built to a crescendo. The Straxix leader's eyes widened. And for the first time, Jackson saw something close to fear in his expression. "No, ... the leader whispered. "You've activated it." But it was too late. The device hummed with an otherworldly power, and Jackson felt his body vibrate with energy. His mind exploded with visions of galaxies, of stars, of ancient civilizations, and of the future. He saw everything, and it was beautiful, terrifying, impossible. The Straxix leader stepped back, his fear now unmistakable. "What have you done?" he demanded, his voice shaking. Jackson could barely hear him over the roaring energy flooding his senses. He wasn't sure what was happening, but he knew one thing for certain. The galaxy would never be the same again. Jackson could feel it, the power, the surge of energy coursing through him as his hand remained on the orb. His body vibrated with it, like a string pulled too tight, ready to snap. The walls of the chamber seemed to close in, the symbols glowing brighter, the air thick with ancient energy. It was as if the entire world was watching, waiting. He tried to pull his hand away, but it was as if the orb had its own will. The more he struggled, the stronger the connection became. His mind spun, a blur of images, stars, planets, civilizations, long lost. He saw the rise of the Straxix Empire, their ancient rule over countless worlds, their destruction of those who dared challenge their reign. But amidst the visions, something else appeared, something new, something human. He saw faces, people, humans, his own kind. Their spirit, their will, their relentless push for progress and knowledge. A new kind of power that the Straxix never understood. It was a force unlike anything the Empire had ever faced. A power that could reshape the galaxy. The orb pulsed with a deafening hum, and Jackson gasped as he felt his consciousness expand. He wasn't just seeing the visions anymore. He was living them. Every moment, every event, every decision that had led up to this point played out before his eyes. It was like watching the history of the galaxy unfold, all within his mind. He struggled to breathe, the sheer volume of information threatening to overwhelm him. His head spun as he tried to hold on to something solid, but the force was too strong. The device was unlocking his mind, opening his thoughts to the knowledge of the universe. The Straxix leader, still recovering from the shock of the activation, reached out, trying to stop him. "No," he shouted, but his voice was drowned out by the growing hum. Jackson couldn't hear him. The energy inside him was all-consuming. He felt like he was floating in space, surrounded by the stars, connected to every point in the universe. He could feel the past, the present, and the future all at once, like threads pulling at him from every direction. It was too much, too fast. But then, something remarkable happened. Jackson's human mind, his ability to think, to question, to push forward began to filter through the chaos. He could feel the Sraxix control slipping, their understanding of the galaxy too rigid, too limited. Their knowledge was vast, but it was not creative. It was based on rules and control, on holding everything in place. Humans, Jackson, in particular, were different. Humans innovated. They adapted. They saw solutions where others saw walls, and then he understood. He didn't need to be consumed by the power of the device. He could control it. The key was his mind, the human mind, his unpredictability, his curiosity, his willingness to change the rules. With a deep breath, Jackson focused. He centered himself, pushing through the overwhelming flood of knowledge. He focused on one thing: the Sraxix Empire. The prophecy had said that the outsider would either restore balance or break it. Jackson now understood that he would decide the fate of the galaxy not by force, but by something the Sraxix could never anticipate. The hum in the room shifted. The orb's glow dimmed, and the energy surrounding Jackson began to calm. He could feel the connection between his mind and the device becoming clearer, more manageable. For the first time, he realized that he wasn't just activating the device. He was becoming part of it. Serena, who had been standing quietly beside him, stepped forward as the energy in the room stabilized. Her golden eyes met his with a mixture of awe and concern. You've done it," she whispered. Jackson nodded slowly, his heart still racing from the surge of power. "I think I understand it now. I don't need to control the power. I need to use it. The Sraxix will never see it coming." The Sraxix leader, who had been watching in growing horror, took a step forward, his eyes narrowing. "What are you doing, human? You have no idea what you've unleashed." Jackson turned to face him, his expression calm, but his voice full of certainty. "I understand it better than you think. This device doesn't belong to you or your empire. It was meant for something greater." The Sraxix leader's eyes flickered with something close to fear. "You cannot defeat us. We are the rulers of the galaxy. We control everything." "You control what you can see," Jackson replied. "But the universe is bigger than your empire. And humans have always been the ones to push beyond what's known. You never understood that?" For a brief moment, the room fell silent. The Sraxix leader, his face cold and unyielding, seemed to reconsider his next move. But before he could respond, the ground trembled beneath them. Jackson felt at first a low vibration, like a distant rumble. The air around them seemed to shift. The symbols on the walls flickered erratically, as though the tower itself was reacting to the power now coursing through Jackson. "What's happening?" Serena asked, her voice filled with alarm. The Sraxix leader's face twisted in fury. "You've triggered something else. The heart of Eris-9 is not just a device of knowledge. It is a device of destruction." Jackson's mind raced as he pieced together the fragments of the prophecy. The device wasn't just about unlocking knowledge. It was about balance. The galaxy had been in stasis for too long, ruled by a single power, held in place by the Sraxix. The prophecy had never been just about one person. It was about the entire galaxy being forced to change. The heart of Eris-9 would either restore the balance of power or destroy everything in its wake. He felt the pressure building in the air. The tower was responding to the energy now flowing through him, but not just in a positive way. There was something darker, something dangerous about the power that was being unleashed. The device was not just a tool of knowledge, it was a weapon. "Get out of here," Jackson shouted at Serena. "The device is going to destroy this place. It's too unstable." Serena hesitated, her gaze flickering between Jackson and the Sraxix. "You can't just activate it and walk away, Captain. There's a cost." Jackson clenched his fists, realizing that Serena was right. The device wasn't just a key to knowledge, it was tied to everything in this world. And it was too powerful to control fully without consequences. "We don't have time," Jackson said, his voice urgent. "The Sraxix will come for us, and this entire place will collapse if we don't leave now." Serena nodded, stepping back. "Then we have no choice. We need to get to the escape route. Now."
Ow.
But before they could move, the ground shook violently, and the chamber walls cracked, sending stones tumbling to the floor. The Straxix leader raised his hand, and the air around them shimmered with a strange energy. "You think you can escape?" He sneered. "This device belongs to the Straxix, and no matter what you do, it will never be yours." Jackson's eyes widened as he felt the room growing colder. The Straxix had activated some kind of countermeasure, something to prevent the device from being fully used by anyone else. The chamber was beginning to collapse around them. "Serena," Jackson shouted, "now!" Together, they ran toward the exit as the tower groaned under the strain. The Straxix leader stood motionless, his eyes locked onto Jackson, but he made no move to stop them. The walls of the chamber were falling apart around them as the ground beneath their feet cracked open. Jackson could hear the distant sound of more Straxix forces approaching reinforcements.
No doubt.
They had to move quickly. They reached the entrance. But as they made their way outside, Jackson glanced back at the falling tower, the energy still pulsating from within it. The device was alive, but it was dangerous, uncontrollable. The balance had shifted, but at what cost? Serena grabbed his arm, pulling him forward. "We need to leave now." Jackson took one last look at the tower as it crumbled behind them. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing for sure. He had set something in motion that the Straxix could never stop. Jackson and Serena ran as fast as they could, the crumbling tower collapsing behind them. The ground shook violently underfoot, and pieces of stone and dust rained down from above. The air was thick with the sound of destruction, the deep groan of ancient stone breaking apart, the distant rumble of the collapse echoing throughout the planet. "We have to move faster," Jackson shouted, his voice barely rising above the chaos. Serena was ahead of him, her movements fluid and quick, as though she was accustomed to running through danger. She looked over her shoulder, her golden eyes meeting his. "The Straxix will be upon us soon. We cannot outrun them forever." Jackson's heart pounded in his chest as he pushed forward, the weight of everything that had happened pressing down on him. The device, the Heart of Eris-9, had triggered a chain of events he couldn't undo. The Straxix were coming, and the entire galaxy was on the brink of a massive shift. "There has to be a way to stop them," Jackson called out, his voice full of urgency. He wasn't just running for his life anymore. He was running for the future of the galaxy. Serena's gaze hardened. "We may not have the power to stop them right now, but we can at least slow them down. We need to find shelter, a place to regroup." Jackson nodded, his mind working quickly. They couldn't stop the Straxix forces that were closing in on them, but maybe they didn't need to. If he could figure out how to harness the power of the Heart of Eris-9, maybe he could use it against them. The knowledge, the energy, the device itself fit was all in his hands now. The galaxy's fate, his fate, depended on him. They reached the edge of the ruined city. The landscape dropped off into a deep valley. The remnants of a once great civilization stretched out in front of them, crumbling structures, ancient monuments, and broken roads that led into the unknown. "We need to keep moving," Serena said, her voice urgent. "I know," Jackson replied, looking at her. "But I can't just run anymore. I need to do something." Serena turned to face him, her golden eyes searching his face. "What do you mean?" Jackson took a deep breath, his mind racing. "I activated the device. I felt the power of it, the knowledge of the universe, the balance that was shifting. The Straxix have been controlling everything for so long, but maybe that's the problem. We need to give others a chance. I have to learn how to use this power to give people a voice, not just the Straxix." Serena's eyes softened slightly. "You're right," she said quietly, "but time is running out. The Straxix will not wait." He glanced back toward the ruins, feeling the tremors beneath his feet. The Straxix were relentless. They wouldn't stop until they had regained control of what was theirs. And that meant erasing the power Jackson had just awakened. "I won't let them win," Jackson said, his voice firm. "I have to figure out how to use this power. We'll find a way to fight back. The galaxy needs a new balance, one that doesn't revolve around fear and control." Serena nodded, her gaze distant. "I have a safe place. A place hidden from the Straxix. We can regroup there." They turned and began moving quickly down a narrow path, hidden in the shadows of the ruined city. As they made their way through the wreckage, Jackson felt the weight of the situation closing in on him. The Sraxics were strong, their empire vast and powerful. How could one human, one outsider hope to make a difference? But as the energy from the heart of Eris 9 pulsed faintly within him, Jackson felt a spark of hope. This power wasn't just about destruction. It was about possibility. The galaxy had been under the control of the Sraxics for too long. It was time for something new. They reached a small cave hidden beneath the ruins, its entrance covered by ancient stone carvings. Serena led the way inside, her hand glowing softly as she touched the symbols, revealing the path. The cave was cool, its walls lined with strange glowing crystals that provided the only light. "This place is protected," Serena said. "The Sraxics have never been able to find it." Jackson stepped into the cave, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on him. The Sraxics would be here soon. They had to act quickly. Serena led him to a small chamber at the back of the cave. In the center of the room was a large stone table, covered in ancient scrolls and devices that Jackson couldn't recognize. There were also old maps, showing the locations of hidden Sraxics outposts, trade routes, and key planets across the galaxy. "This is the heart of the Resistance," Serena said. "These maps and scrolls contain the knowledge and plans of those who once fought the SRAXX. Jackson glanced over the maps, his mind racing as he took in the information. The Sraxics had controlled everything: their technology, their knowledge, their history. But this cave, this place, held the key to fighting back. "Where do we start?" Jackson asked, his voice steady. Serena moved to the table and spread out a map of the galaxy. Her fingers traced the outlines of several key locations, places where the Sraxics had the most control. "We begin by spreading the word," she said. "We build alliances. We show the galaxy that they don't have to live under the Sraxx rule anymore." Jackson nodded, his mind working through the possibilities. "We need to disrupt the Sraxx grip on knowledge. If we can share the truth, if we can awaken others to the possibilities, then maybe we can tip the balance." Serena's golden eyes gleamed. "Exactly. The heart of Eris 9 is not just a weapon. It's a tool for understanding, for breaking down the walls that the Sraxics have built. The galaxy is vast, and humanity has only scratched the surface. If we can harness this power, we can rebuild from the ground up." Jackson looked at the map again, a sense of determination rising in him. This wasn't just about stopping the SRAX. Exit was about giving others a chance to stand up, to rise, and to fight for something more. But even as he felt the power of the device pulsing within him, a wave of fear washed over him. The Sraxics would never let go easily. They would fight until the last breath to maintain control. And Jackson knew that if they were going to have any chance of succeeding, they needed allies. They needed to move quickly. "We have to act now," Jackson said, his voice firm. "We don't have much time before the Sraxics come for us." Serena nodded. "I'll contact the Resistance. We'll need their help to fight back." Jackson took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the task ahead. The galaxy had been ruled by fear for far too long. But now, he had the power to change that. The question was, did he have the strength to use it? Suddenly, a loud rumble shook the ground, and Jackson felt a chill crawl up his spine. The Sraxics were close. They were already coming. "They're here," Serena said, her voice calm but urgent. "We need to go. Now." Jackson took one last look at the map, feeling a surge of resolve. It was time to fight for the future of the galaxy. And he would do whatever it took to make sure that humanity would never again live in the shadow of the SRAXX. Together, they gathered the scrolls and maps, preparing for what was coming. The galaxy was about to change. Jackson's heart was ready to lead the way.